So my job as team leader is to create the optimum space to allow the program to flourish and interventions to work. That's what I do. I work hard to make that happen and to allow the team to be able to operate properly, to have the mechanisms that work to allow me to do that. So, you know, that's my main role, and sometimes I've had to fight like a lion, and other times I can relax a bit because things are going well. And I think that's okay. I expect to do that as part of my job. For me, a lot of the talks we've had here at the conference have come from a very high level. You know, we sort of talk at the policy level. We're all, you know, boiling away with our ideas together, you know, getting very hot and heavy about it. But we're talking from a very, the practical side of implementers and how we feel in the field. But as any of us that implement things practically know, that the real, you know, you've got to think about the interface of where things actually get done. And in this relationship between the donor and the implementing partner, we have to think about the interface in the country between the team leader maybe or other program staff and between the national program office. That's the actual interface where the communication takes place, most of it. So being aware of that, we need to just think clearly about making that communication between across that interface as clear as possible. And also within it being aware that we have to navigate it and facilitate. I just apply facilitation techniques, frankly, with the local office. And in the past there have been difficulties and misunderstandings and things like when my spending was going to be controlled to $500, after which I would have to ask for authority, and I was allowed a maximum of 10, which would have, killed the program, needless to say. So then I fought hard. But in other ways, I tried to give as much as possible, you know, to turn the relationship into a positive one. So sort of, so reframing that sort of communication space. One example, for example, was when I came in, SDC funds my program. Governance was the absolute thing that year. It was the 5 principles of good governance, and we had a big workshop on it, and you know, it was really, really very sincerely being put across that these 5 principles should be in the program and really worked. And I could see there was a kind of pain on the, you know, the donor side there. They really needed this in their programs. And I was about to write the sort of main proposal, so I thought, okay, they've tried really hard, very earnestly, so I'll do it. You know, I'll put them in. And put them in quite seriously and thought about an outcome. I thought, well, yeah, it's not just talk, it's actually really useful stuff. Similarly with gender. Gender for me was an easy win. I want a gender equitable program. I want my women and men of the target group to benefit. And SDC were very strong on gender. They got a really good gender framework. We'd had some bad experiences. We'd been slapped over the head a few times by people coming out and saying strange things that we couldn't really respond to politely. But anyway, I thought, no, this is something I believe in, let's make this work. Now, the local program officer, who is a civil servant, who stays in their job, whose boss changes every 3 or 4 years, they're not sure really what their orientation is. Are they sort of pro-M4P, or are they a major governance person, or are they a macroeconomic person? And they have to weather the winds of change. They live there. It's their job. It's their life. So what I'm trying to say is the local office is subject to all the cultural constraints of their environment. You've got to think about that when you're dealing with them. So in giving, a good piece of governance writing and some activities and some things for them to report back to their boss and their HQ, they were really happy. And so that's just one example. The second one, and last one, sort of trade-off. We had a lot of problems with visibility. We negotiated hard. The very first phase of the programme was backstopped by Springfield, and the visibility issue was very high on the agenda then. I haven't really heard it discussed here this time. So it must be, maybe it's just accepted that that's the way to do it. But
sorry, just explain what
visibility,
what
so
visibility.
low visibility, maintaining low visibility on your program interventions in the market, not sticking stickers on everything and, proclaiming everything with 100 signs. So anyway, we fought very hard for that. Springfield fought very hard for that. And we negotiated a contract with the local office, which was that if a Mercy Corps logo went on it and the Progro logo went on it, then we'd have to put SDC on as well. But in general, we got it through. We've had to push back quite a few times, but in general, it's been okay. And for me, the main thing to work is to say, donor, I will give you high visibility, very, very high. But I'll give it in the external operating environment of the program. I will talk about how brilliant you are, because I think you are brilliant in many ways, in the Beam Exchange Conference, in the DCD conference, in external publications. I will quite openly talk about those things and what I think is good and so on. But within the market interventions, within the operating space, where it will cause damage, no. So that was a sort of trade-off, and then bringing to the attention of the donor and the office things like, where successes have been had, documentary films, very highly visible things that can then be shared around the donor organization, they can use for their own benefit. So those are, I'll be quiet now, those are just a few examples.
Thank you, Helen.